Hello and welcome again to the Constitution Study. My name is Paul Engel. We are here today to read and study our Constitution, not only to be better prepared to understand our rights and defend them, but to return the Constitution to its rightful owners, we the people of the United States of America. Excuse me, I'm glad you could join me today. Actually, I'm glad pretty much every time you join me. If you're new here, welcome. This should be interesting. I actually have a very personal, topic to cover today. But I wanted to thank you for coming here. If you are a returning guest, thank you. We want you to become part of the team. We want not simply for me to be up here talking into a microphone and sharing my ideas, but actually to have people begin to think and understand and read and study the Constitution, begin to understand better what it means and how it should impact our lives and how we interact with our governments, federal, state, and local. So if you're here, I hope you'll head over to the website, constitutionstudy.com. That's where I'm posting these episodes. I've got blog posts that go into a lot of stuff that I talk about here. It's also where we keep track of what is going on. You can follow me there. I'm also on Facebook. These do get posted to YouTube. But the website, constitutionstudy.com, that's kind of the heart. That's the heart of what I'm doing with the online work. And it's where you can go to get the most information. For example, you can ask me a question. I love when people ask me questions. It's how I get feedback on, am I getting my points across? But it also helps me understand that you're engaged with what's going on, and there's something either you need me to explain again in more detail, or something I haven't touched on yet. And you put those in. You can make comments on the posts. You can head over to patreon.com/Constitution Study, support the work that we're doing. You can find my essays on Amazon.com. Just look for me, Paul Engel. I've got two. I've got a third one that hopefully will be going out soon. I've done the 16th and 17th Amendment. I've done the Declaration of Independence, and I'm hopefully going to have the Bill of Rights out there soon, possibly even by the time this thing hits the air. So today I want to talk about something, as hopefully most of you know, I'm writing a book that's kind of what's prompted a lot of this that I've been doing on the website and in the podcast is what I'm doing with the book, and preparing and doing the research. And I come across ideas that kind of get my attention. And the other day I was going over the General Welfare Clause, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1 of the Constitution reads, the Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, to pay the debts, and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. Now, there are several phrases in the Constitution that are regularly misrepresented, misunderstood, misinterpreted, just plain missed. And probably one of the more common ones is the General Welfare Clause. It's the power of Congress to provide for, quote unquote, the general welfare of the United States. Now, this has been used to allow Congress to do an awful lot of things, but let's take a time and let's break it down. Let's look at what is actually said. Let's actually look at what the people who wrote the Constitution and ratified the Constitution said it meant. So if we break it down, general welfare, well, general means public, common, relating to or comprehending the whole community as a general interest of safety or safety of a nation. In other words, general is pretty general. Welfare is exemption from any unusual evil or calamity to the enjoyment of peace and prosperity or the ordinary blessings of a society and civil government when applied to the states. That, by the way, is from Webster's 1828 dictionary. I use the 1828 dictionary because it's the closest one we have to the actual writing of the documents we're researching. So, General Welfare Clause, when it's applied to the states, means to be exempt from unusual evil or calamity and the enjoyment of peace and prosperity and blessings of society for the community as a whole. Well, then, I guess the next logical question would be, what is this community? So notice the Constitution does not say the general welfare of the people of the United States, nor the general welfare of the states, but of the United States. Now today, we tend to think of the United States as a nation broken into 50 subdivisions we call states. But when the Constitution was ratified, we had 13 independent, sovereign states who joined together and delegated some of their powers to a central government called the United States. Now, this distinction may seem trivial, but it is actually quite important. You see, if the United States is a single government divided into smaller units we call states, then Washington rules, and your states are merely colonies of Washington. Really not much different than their condition in 1776 under British rule. If, however, we are 50 sovereign states who have delegated some of their power to the Union, and if the term United States refers to the Union and its central government, then the meaning of the phrase, the Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States, means something entirely different than we've been told. See, it means Congress can collect taxes to pay the debts of the federal government, not the debts of the states. It means Congress can collect taxes to pay for the defense of the nation as a whole, not the defense of individual states. And most importantly, it means Congress can collect taxes to pay for the general welfare of the United States, not the people or the individual states. Now, I know this is not what you've been taught. You may be thinking, I'm pulling this out of thin air. Actually, I looked at the words of James Madison. He's known as the father of the Constitution. And when he was in Congress, he was debating what's known as the Cod Fisheries Bill. And he was in the House of Representatives. This took place in February 1792. Now, this bill included a provision for the central government, the federal government we call it today, to provide bounties to cod fishermen as a way to encourage people to join the profession. During the debate on February 3rd, Mr. Giles said, quote, "The present section of the bill," he continued, "appears to contain a direct bounty on occupations, and if that be its object, it is the first attempt as yet made by this government to exercise such authority, and its constitutionality struck him as doubtful, in a doubtful point of view. For in no part of the Constitution could he, in express terms, find a power given to Congress to grant bounties on occupations. The power is neither directly granted, nor, by any reasonable construction that he could give, annexed to any other specified in the Constitution." Sorry, I was a little off on that one. See, no one, not even those who proposed the bill, could come up with any reasonable way of showing that the Constitution gave Congress this power. Later on February 7th, Mr. Madison went on to detailed explanation of why the common defense and general welfare clauses could not be used to justify Congress having the power to spend money in that way. Quote, "It is to be recollected that the terms, quote, common defense and general welfare, close quote, as here used, are not novel terms, first introduced in this Constitution. They are terms familiar in their construction and well known to the people of America. They are repeatedly found in the old Articles of the Confederation where, although they were susceptible of as great a latitude as can be given them by the context here, it was never supposed or pretended that they conveyed any such power as is now assigned to them. On the contrary, it was always considered clear and certain that the old Congress was limited to the enumerated powers, and that the enumeration limited and explained the general terms." Close quote. See, in short, never before had it even been considered that Congress would have the power to collect taxes to be used for anything it thought was good for the general welfare. Mr. Madison went on to describe the dangers of granting Congress such power in the same debate. Quote, "If Congress can employ money indefinitely to the general welfare and are the sole and supreme judges of the general welfare, then they may take care of religion into their own hands. They may appoint teachers in every state, county, and parish, and pay them out of the public treasury. They may take into their own hands the education of children, establishing in like manner schools throughout the Union that may assume the provision for the poor. They may undertake the regulation of all roads other than post roads. In short, everything, from the highest object of state legislation down to the most minute object of police, would be thrown under the power of Congress. For every object I have mentioned would admit of the application of money and might be called, if Congress pleased, provisions for the general welfare. Mr. Madison recognized that if we gave Congress the power to determine what is and is not for the general welfare of the United States, then every portion, every part of our lives would be under the control of Congress. As we see today, Congress has inserted itself into education, traffic laws, even state and local law enforcement. While I did not mention religion as Mr. Madison has, it's only because Congress has abdicated their responsibility to oversee the courts, who have taken care to arbitrate religious views. Because Congress routinely delegates their powers to the executive and judicial branches, we now live in a nation where literally everything is a federal case. Going back to Mr. Madison, quote, "In short, sir, without going further into the subject, which I should not have here touched at all but for the reasons already mentioned, I venture to declare it as my opinion that, were the power of Congress to be established in the latitude contended for, it would subvert the very foundations and transmute the very nature of the limited government established by the people of America. And what inferences might be drawn, or what consequences ensue from such a step, it is incumbent on us all to consider." See, Mr. Madison was right. As we've seen throughout history, Congress's appetite for control over the citizenry has grown without limit or restraint. The very idea that there are limitations on the federal government is all but heresy in today's political and judicial environments. No limitation on Congress exists but what the Supreme Court bothers to decree, and the role of the states is no longer even considered. I wish previous generations had bothered to consider the consequences of giving Congress power beyond their constitutional boundaries. I can only encourage that we today not only consider them, but begin enforcing those boundaries again. And, as I was saying, I was writing this part of Article 1 in the book, and it just struck me. It struck me that this one phrase, the general welfare of the United States, the defense and general welfare, has been taken out of control. Congress has used it to do absolutely everything. And not surprising at all, our founding fathers were right. Madison was right. If we let Congress decide what the general welfare is, if they decide that it's what the welfare of the people, the welfare of the states, they can do absolutely everything. They can say, we will be in charge of your retirement because you're not good enough. We'll be in charge of your health care because you're not good enough. We will set the standards for education because you're not good enough. We will determine what is and is not a fair wage because you're not smart enough. They have taken control, and we have let them. That's right, friends. We, the people, have let them do it. We look at the mess that Congress is in, and as much as we like to point the finger at those in Congress or those of the other political party, the finger really should be pointing at us. It is time we said, no, Congress, the general welfare of the United States is what is generally meant for the welfare of the central government and the union that was created, not the people, not the individual states. And if you can't figure that out, it is time for us to say that you're not qualified to sit in that office. Even if they come and say, well, we'll give you money, we'll give you this goodie, we'll give you that goodie. I don't care. If you can't show me that you're going to uphold your oath to the Constitution, you have shown me you are unqualified. You are incapable of properly holding that office. And until more than a few of us actually stand up and say, no, this is not whatever you want it to be. You do not have the power to write whatever law you want. And no, the states are not subservient to the federal government. The states are superior to the federal government. The states created the federal government. And I'd wish our states would get their backsides out of their chairs and start defending their own sovereignty. But they're only going to do it when we require our state legislatures, those who we send to represent us in our state capitals, to do their job as well and uphold the Constitution, uphold the state constitution, uphold the sovereignty of these states. We spent a lot of time getting to this mess. It's going to take a lot of time to get out of it. But the journey of 1,000 miles, as said, begins with but a step. And until we start walking, we're not going to get anywhere. So I hope you found this interesting. If you would, head to the website, constitutionstudy.com, comment on this episode, ask a question. I'm looking, right now things are kind of in flux, and I'm trying to decide where the future of this is going to go. Is it going to change? Is it going to remain the same? So I'd like to hear your input. I'd like to know what you think. You can contact me through the website. And again, I hope you found this helpful. I hope I'm not just talking to myself, that there are people that listen and find this helpful. And I would appreciate it if you would head over to the website and let me know. Most of all, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something. I hope it made you think. And I hope to see you again the next time on the Constitution Study.